More Petra on vinyl. What's not to like? We'll take a look at these two new releases from Girder Records coming up. Hey there, y'all. Welcome back to another Tim Talks Christian Rock. Tim Risto here. Hope you're doing awesome today, and may God bless your day going forward from here. It is a Petra Day today here on the show as we celebrate these two new vinyl releases courtesy of Girder Records, limited run vinyl, and Capital Christian Music Group. This is cause to celebrate for sure. As always, anytime we get more Petra on vinyl, it is a cool thing. So we're going to talk about Petra's Washes Wider Than album, originally released back in 1979, and the Best for Last album on vinyl, which was really kind of a compilation album, or is a compilation album, based on the set list for Petra's last tour. So it's actually some interesting things to talk about on both these releases. So we're gonna dig into that today. I think we'll have some fun with these. I just got my shipment yesterday, as a matter of fact. In fact, I showed it on yesterday's video, and had a chance to pop these on the turntable last night, listen to them both, listen to Washes Wider Than all the way through, and about half of Best for Last. So we'll be able to comment, taking a look at both the products themselves, comment on that, and then also comment on the audio quality of them as well, too. So let's dig in. All right, so let's go ahead and start with this vinyl reissue of Petra's 1979 album, Washes Wider Than. This was just released by Girder Records on vinyl, reissued. It was originally released on vinyl back in 1979 on Star Song Records, and also it was reissued on CD by Girder Records in 2021, but they did not reissue the vinyl at that same time. Why, I'm not sure, other than, they were still releasing a lot of other, probably more popular Petra albums on vinyl and CD reissues that they probably wanted to put out first, maybe, and kind of get to the point where, for completionist sake, maybe people would then end up wanting to buy this album. It was not necessarily a super popular one in Petra's back catalog. So even though it did start with one of Petra's first kind of singles, I guess, with Why Should the Father Bother back in the day, it's been eclipsed by so many other better albums over the decades. But regardless, it's great to have more Petra on vinyl and to have a reissue of this. Like I said, the original came out in 1979 on vinyl. It actually didn't have a official CD release. It got released on this CD by Star Song in sometime in the 80s, which was combined with Never Say Die, which is the cover that you see there. And they actually left a couple tracks off of this CD release. I think it was Magic Words and what was the other one? Couldn't Find Love Without You. They left those two tracks off of this CD release for some reason. I'm not sure why. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But anyway, so really when Girder put this CD out in 2021, this was the first time the full CD had been the full album had been released on CD in its completionness, I guess you could say. Completionness? In its complete glory, as a complete album, something like that. Anyway, it was fully released on that CD, but there had been no vinyl release. So now here today, we're finally getting the vinyl of it. And this is a nice addition, to be sure. This is not one of my favorite Petra albums. However, it does contain one of my all-time favorite Petra songs, and that's the side B opener, Yahweh Love, which comes in at 5:38. Absolutely love that song. That's one I've always wished Petra would have redone, because, it's pretty cool. It's kind of you could call it kind of a psychedelic rock song, very much of the 70s time period, but it's got this great intro and a great outro. It's got Voltz's vocals, and I think also Rob Frazier's vocals on here as well. And that's the other thing I should mention. This is the album known for having vocalist Rob Frazier involved along with Greg X. Voltz. So kind of a unique album. The only album that Frazier served as vocalist on with Petra. So it's unique in the Petra catalog in that way too. But anyway, back to Yahweh Love. I just love that song. I think that's one of the coolest Petra songs ever. Wish Petra had redone it the way they did God Gave Rock and Roll to You. They redid that later on Beat the System, which came off of the Come and Join Us album. And so this song I thought would really be a cool one. Or, maybe CPR would redo it as well. I just think it's a song waiting to kind of be redone in a kind of modern way, but also retain some of the flavor of the original too. But anyway, that is without a doubt one of my all-time favorite Petra songs. It comes off an album that is not my favorite Petra album at all. But so let's look at this release here. I mean, as you can see, the cover art has been reproduced very nicely to the original, the front and the back. I don't have the original vinyl. I've just never picked that up. But from what I remember, most of this, the front I know for sure is very, very accurate to the original. It does look cleaner and brighter and everything. And the back, I think, is pretty similar as well. Obviously, there's been some new logos and stuff added with the Girder Records and things like that, but I think everything else is pretty much accurate to the original. So if we look at the vinyl and what comes with it, this does include a nice insert, which of course includes all the lyrics for the entire album. And then the flip side here of the insert, it's really kind of nice. They've got all the musicians listed, more than just the band, but just all the musicians that performed on it. This was produced by George Atwell, and then it's got some credits down there as well. But what's kind of neat here are the photos, which I think were in the CD as well, the reissued CD, but that have some unique photos from during the production of the album, which you don't often see for Petra projects. So it's cool to see that. Up here you've got Rob Frazier and Greg X Volts actually tracking vocals together around a mic. So that's really cool to see. Then you've got Bob Hartman here in the recording studio for the album. You've got George Atwell down here, the producer, and Andy Deganel, I think his name is. And he was, who was he with you? I think he was the engineer. I was going to say he's at the board there, so he's the engineer. And then you've got a group of people here that include Rob Frazier, Greg Volts, Bob Hartman, and some others that are gathered in the around the board there in the recording booth. So very, very cool to have those included from this time period here of the late 70s recording session for this Petra album. So nice insert. Really, really like that. The vinyl itself comes in just a paper sleeve. There's no polyurethane liner inside there. It's just a white paper sleeve. But the vinyl itself is really very nice looking. It's this, clear, partially translucent, but mainly clear and blue colored vinyl, which is really awesome looking. Fits, of course, the color motif on the album art itself. There's the side A label, which is again based off of the cover artwork. And then side B as well, which has that, wash machine, hand-driven wash machine there. That's part of the cover art as well. So very, very cool vinyl edition, unique in many ways and very, very fitting for the album art itself. As has become the tradition of Girder Records with their Petra vinyl releases, they've also enclosed a poster in with this vinyl release, which reproduces the front cover art of the Wash Is Whiter Than album. This was designed and drawn by George Worth back in the day, so it's it's kind of cool. It's unique. It's not my favorite for a Petra cover art necessarily, but very much a product of its time, and it's very well done. There's no doubt about that. It's kind of cool, and it is unique in the Petra catalog of cover art. And then they also include some of those photos that I showed you on the insert here at the bottom. So, nice to have, nice to see that they continued the trend of offering a poster with this Petra vinyl release as well. All right, so there we go. Here is Girder's reissue of Petra's 1979 album, Wash Is Whiter Than, on vinyl. This is really a very nice edition, even though that this is not, at all my favorite Petra album. Listening to it again last night, it really does sound good. I think all the tracks sound really very good. Enjoyed listening to it again. I've kind of warmed up to it more over the years. Maybe I've just heard it enough over time now to where I'm like, oh yeah, it's a unique place in the Petra catalog. It's got its unique spot. Definitely much more mellow. Probably what they deemed radio friendly back in the day. But it does have its nice tracks. Again, Yahweh Love for me is the standout track. I actually also like Magic Words, which was one of those that was left off of this CD release here. That's actually a Rob Fraser song. It kind of rocks a little bit. I kind of like that tune. Why Should the Father Bother? The second track on side A was really kind of the standout radio hit from this album. Kind of the first song, I believe, in the Petra catalog to really make decent radio airplay, and kind of became a hit single for the band. Kind of got them started. Ironically, it was off of this album. What else? There's a couple that are kind of funky ones. I think it was, Taste and See's kind of got a funk to it. I think maybe Magic Mirror does too. Not a ton of favorites on here, but it does have kind of a unique musical style to it, and that combined vocals on several tracks with Fraser and Volts is kind of interesting too. But without a doubt, for me, Yahweh Love is the standout track, and it's a little over 5.5 minutes long, so it's a longer track on here as well. But nice release, and if you've collected all the other Girder Petra reissues on vinyl, you're probably going to want to get this one as well for completionist's sake. So nice album. Worth adding to your collection if you're a Petra fan. Take a quick look at that original Girder CD release as well too, for those of you interested. Again, this came out in 2021. It came with, of course, the CD and a booklet, but also a photo art card as well that features Bob Hartman on guitar. And this is card number 62. There's the back with a little write-up on it. It says here, Washes Wider Than is the third studio album by Petra. It was released in 1979 amidst major lineup changes. This is the first Petra release to feature singer Greg X. Volts as an official band member. He was actually on Come and Join Us, the 1977 album prior to this album. Musician Rob Fraser, who later went on to have a successful solo career, is also featured as lead vocalist on several of the songs, as well as playing most of the instrumentation together with founder guitarist Bob Hartman. So really, the official lineup as listed here was Greg X. Volts vocals, Bob Hartman guitars, Rob Fraser guitars, keyboards, and vocals. So this was one time in Petra's history where they really were a trio of a band, as an official lineup goes. Then here was the disc art on that CD. There's the art in the tray. It's kind of interesting. Petra, that great Petra logo against a bunch of soap bubbles. Interesting mix of graphics there. Kind of a little humorous. And then, of course, the booklet itself. There's the front and the back, reproducing the front and back of the album art. And then, of course, they have, again, those photos that I've shown you here with the musicians listed, and then lyrics, and more lyrics there. So that's the Girder Records 2021 reissue of Washes Wider Than on CD. And finally, here's that original issue of Washes Wider Than on CD combined with Never Say Die. This was back in 1988, I think, according to the dates on here. So again, as you can tell, the back is very plain, but it lists, Never Say Die and then Washes Wider Than tracks, which again, as you'll note at the bottom here, it notes leaving off a couple of tracks that were on the original vinyl release. Not exactly sure why they did that. I think maybe it had to do with, length issues for the CD format back in the day. These were both Rob Fraser written songs, but I don't think it has anything to do with, licensing or copyright with Fraser at the time, because there are other Rob Fraser written songs that are included on this CD. So I think it was just a length issue. So it's kind of notable for that it really never concluded the complete album. Here is CD itself, a very standard Star Song type of label. This is a pre-owned CD that I got, so of course it's got somebody's initials in there. This does not have a booklet, it's just a folded insert, which there's the inside, and then you do get the washes wider than cover art on the backside. So I guess you could flip it in the CD depending upon which one you wanted to feature within the case. That's the original Star Song release right there on CD. All right, on to our second and last of the Girder Records Petra vinyl releases. This one here is titled The Best for Last. This was a brand new release in some ways not. And this is basically a compilation album of the songs that Petra performed on their final tour last year, basically. I think they may have had a few dates this year, too, here in 2025. Not positive on that, but I think so. So anyway, is this a live album of their tour? No, it is not. In fact, if you look at the spine, it's not listed on the front anywhere, but if you look at the spine, if you can see, I don't know if it'll focus on it or not, but it does say Best for Last studio version. That's kind of hard to see, but it says studio version. That's meant to clarify that, these are the studio cuts of the songs. So basically, songs that were pulled, and here's the track list on the back here, songs that were pulled from their previous albums and just compiled in the order of the set list as they performed it in this last tour. So no, these are not live in any way. By the fact that they highlight studio version, does that mean there's a live version coming? Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't think so. I think that's just to help clarify the fact that because this album has the same title as their tour title, they don't want people confusing thinking that it is live material, which it is not. So it's basically just a compilation album. But there are a few unique things about it. Number one, of course, the cover art's actually really cool. The back is very simple. This is a copy of the handwritten set list for the tour, which you get a reproduction of here in the vinyl, which I'll show you that in a minute. But so that's kind of cool. The label here is unique, and it says 12 studio recordings as played on tour with printed autograph set list, like I mentioned, as a tour souvenir. Girder Records, and there's the vinyl up there. I noticed on Girder's website that there is another label that at the top says, Record Store Day item or something like that. So I guess for those that were sent to the record, for Record Store Day, those editions that were sent to there had a slightly different label, for what it's worth mentioning that. But anyway, so this is a compilation album. Let's take a look at the vinyl inside. It does have a nice insert, which again includes all the lyrics from all those songs. On the other side here is a band photo, the title, and of course the tour lineup, band members, and a few other additional credits there. Interesting choice of photo. We'll get to that in a minute. Vinyl itself does come in a black paper and a polyurethane-lined sleeve, and this vinyl is actually a very, very nice looking color. Really, really like the color of this vinyl. It's quite amazing. And probably showing it here on camera is not going to do it justice, but it really is a gorgeous mix of this kind of brownish amber, gold, and black smoke wispy kind of mix of colored vinyl. It's very, very nice. So there's both sides of that with the label. We'll talk about that here in a minute too. All right, so I'll talk about this album a little bit because there's some unusual choices on it, some interesting things about it, but some unusual choices for it as well. I'm not a big fan of compilation albums, and Petra has had a ton of compilation albums over the years, over the decades, and this is just another one, really, in some ways. It's built around this idea of the set list for their final tour. So it's kind of unique. It would have been more interesting had it been a live recording of stuff from the tour. I think that would have been interesting. Again, is that coming? I don't have any knowledge that it is. It doesn't seem likely, but who knows? Maybe, again, the fact they label this studio version, maybe there'll be a live version coming. I don't know. I'm not aware of any recording that went on during the tour. There probably was, but I'm not aware of any that is making for a planned release for this. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But again, there's so many compilation albums, and this is just kind of another one in that vein. Now, it is well done, and so there's a couple things to kind of note about this. First, since I've got the vinyl out, I'll just kind of note this. If you notice on the label that I showed earlier, which is side A and which is side B? you can tell that the labels are very similar. Usually what they'll often do is have, the Girder logo on one side or retroactive logo or something like that on the opposite side, on the B side. They didn't do that here. So the labels are very, very similar. They are identified. It's just a little trickier to see because of this font stuff. You see up there, there's an A there. And then on the flip side, of course, there's the B there. So it's in that real scroll-like font, which makes it really hard to read. Once you find it and realize that's where it's at, you go, oh, okay, there it is. They are identified. But so just kind of a little confusing choice there in terms of the design. But it still looks cool. And again, once you're aware of it, it's easy to find. But again, the vinyl color is the real standout for me, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous vinyl for sure. The other kind of unusual thing here is on the insert, which I mentioned earlier, this photo of the band. It's an interesting choice of photo because this particular lineup of the band is not the one that performed on the Best for Last tour. They've got them listed here. It was Hartman, Schlitt, John Lowry, Greg Bailey, and Christian Borneo. Well, this has Lowry, Hartman, Louis Weaver, drummer, Mark Dean Kelly, bass, and of course John Schlitt. So you've got 3 of the guys here that actually performed on this Best for Last tour, but 2 that were not, and 2 that were from kind of the early Dream Team era, I guess you could say. You say, well, maybe they included that photo because, these are studio songs, and these guys performed on most of the studio tracks here. Actually, that's not the case either. Mark Dean Kelly only performed on a few of these. I think he came, he saw, he conquered, was from This Means War, so Mark Dean Kelly was involved with that. But most everything else, I think there may have been one other one. Anyway, most everything else is from really the different eras of Petra. But the Dream Team era in particular. So even that doesn't make sense. I'm not sure why they picked this particular photo. It's a cool band photo, don't get me wrong. I love that photo of the band. It's just an unusual choice for the insert. There actually is a photo that's out there. I'll put it up on screen if I can find it. But that shows this lineup of the band. That would have been a perfect one to put there. Maybe they had copyright or licensing issues with using that. Who knows? But just surprised they didn't go that route. I want to forget to show off the printed kind of photocopy, basically, of the tour set list, which is autographed as well, too. Not actually autographed. Obviously, it's a reproduction of their autographs, a reproduction of the set list. Again, kind of a little gimmicky thing. Kind of interesting. It doesn't amount to more than just, basically a photocopy is what it kind of looks like. Like an old Xerox copy, basically. Again, part of the charm of it. But again, unique thing to have. This is also included, I believe, with the CD. It might be a smaller version or it might be folded or something like that. But so, it's unique. I guess this was actually handwritten by either somebody in the band or somebody at the board. I don't know. But then autographed by, each of the band members. So kind of a cool little thing to have as part of the album release. The other thing to note and just talk about a little bit too is the selection of songs. Again, it's a compilation, so we've seen all these songs before on previous albums, and even on other compilation albums. In fact, if we look at this compilation album, which just came out in 2024, last year, 50 years, this kind of shortened version of the big box set that they put out for Petra's 50th anniversary. There's 5 songs, I believe, that are shared between this one and the Best for Last album. So a lot of crossover between theirs. Now, obviously, this album covers 50 years, so it does include Greg X. Volt's material, and of course has Lucas McGraw on here as well from the very first Petra album. So there are some differences, of course, but there's a lot of similarities too. So you're getting things like Creed, Dance, Beyond Belief, Lord, I Lift Your Name on High. I think we're all on that Petra 50 album. So a lot of similarities there in that regard. And again, they're all studio cuts, so they're not different versions of the songs. The one thing that is kind of a standout is you get Right Place on here, on this Best for Last album, which is from the No Doubt Petra album, which has not been released on vinyl. I believe on the big Petra box set, was it a 5 vinyl edition? that Girder put out, they had the title track from that album, No Doubt, was available on one of the vinyls in that set. So this is the only other song that's been made available on vinyl from that album. So it's kind of unique in that regard. I guess, if you want some of No Doubt on vinyl, you'd have to get the box set to get one track. And I think there's only one track on there from No Doubt. And then here, Right Place, from the Best for Last album. Now, does that mean that possibly we're getting No Doubt coming to vinyl at some point in the future, courtesy of Girder, since they've, remastered a couple tracks from that album for vinyl already? I don't know. Maybe. I'd certainly be a fan of that. I wouldn't mind seeing that album come to vinyl at all. Again, I can't imagine, Revival or Double Take coming to vinyl. Maybe God Fixation in a limited edition. Maybe Farewell in a limited edition. I don't know. Or maybe they'll release them all ultimately just in very, very limited run vinyl for some of the not as popular ones like Revival. But who knows? No Doubt I certainly would love to see on vinyl, and maybe we'll see that come out yet. So again, just kind of going to make you aware of tracks on here. Most of this is, kind of recycled per se, music that's been on other compilations, all the vinyl releases. All of these songs are from albums that have been reissued on vinyl, and they're available out there, except for Right Place. And again, Lord, I Lift Your Name on High would be the other one, which is off of Petra Praise 2, which that album has not been issued on vinyl. But again, that song has appeared on Petra 50 and the Petra 50 box set as well. So, it's available in several different places in several different ways. But does that mean we'll get a Petra Praise 2 on vinyl? I don't know. Probably not. I would imagine the first Petra Praise would be more likely for a vinyl release than Petra Praise 2. But anyway, for what it's worth, it's kind of a little talk about some of the tracks on here. They all sound good. They all sound fine. Audio-wise. Again, I've only listened to side 1. Really, I should mention that. I haven't listened to side 2 yet. But I did listen to side 1, and everything sounds fine on there. So it is neat to hear Right Place on vinyl, for what it's worth. So there you go. There's a quick look at these 2 new vinyl releases for Petra, courtesy of Retroactive Records. Kind of cool to have, with the release here of Washes Whiter Than, that pretty well completes the reissuing of Petra on vinyl from their debut album, 1974's Petra, all the way through to Just Reach Out, which had not been released on vinyl before. And then the ones preceding that, Beyond Belief and Unseen Power, of course, were very difficult to find on vinyl at all. So it's nice to have, with Washes Whiter Than in there now, pretty well that whole era complete from Petra through to Just Reach Out. Excepting, of course, a live, Captured Time and Space live, their live album, the End of the Volts era live album, which has not been re-released on vinyl. There was an original release of that on vinyl too. It has been re-released on CD through Girder. And then I guess Petra Praise, that original Petra Praise album, The Rock Cries Out, has not been released on vinyl either, or re-released on vinyl. That was, I believe, had a vinyl release back in the day, and then, of course, was on CD. So those are the only 2 that I'm aware of that are really missing from that time span between Petra's debut album and Just Reach Out. So, again, this at least helps complete most of those studio albums other than Petra Praise. So, nice to have this again. It is a nice edition, gorgeous-looking vinyl. Nice poster in there. Really very cool. And then this one, The Best for Last, again, is a little more of a gimmicky compilation thing. I don't mean to disparage it. It is a cool-looking vinyl, as you can see, hopefully. And, it is kind of unique to have the tour set list compiled like this. These are good songs on here. I should mention that. This is a great compilation of songs, most of which rock pretty well. And it is neat to have kind of this compilation of the John Schlitt era so nicely contained. So again, not disparaging it. It's just, again, we've had so many compilation albums of Petra over the years that sometimes it's tough to get overly excited about it. But now that I have it, again, listened to half of it so far, it sounds good. It's kind of nice to have. A little gimmicky, but still a fun addition to the Petra vinyl catalog. All right, y'all, that's all I got for today. Go out and listen to some great Christian rock. Make it some Petra today. But above all else, remember, stay in God's Word. Blessings, y'all. Take care. Have a great one.